All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to Multiplayer Bitsy, where I'm excited to share a project I've been working on, where I've extended the classic Bitsy editor to include multiplayer editing. So now you can have students in a game jam go into the same doc together, just like it's Google Docs, and they're going to have the standard set of Bitsy tools, and they can make whatever game they like together in there. So this talk will be why would I do that? What do we get out of taking these paper prototyping practices and allowing people to learn the video game making with them? I'll talk for a moment about my background. So I'm here from San Francisco Bay. I'm a computational media educator. I organize a local feeling of computing meetup. I worked for a couple of years at NASA JPL, where we basically made Airtable, but for Mars rover coordination. And I am a banana slug from UC Santa Cruz. Woo! And this is Multiplayer Bitsy. I gave a version of this talk at the Indiecade Horizons Educators Summit a couple months ago with a group of games educators. So that's going to be the primary audience I'm addressing, since, of course, this is a very limited engine. It's valuable because your scope is going to remain small by the virtue of what this tool is capable of. And because it's not capable of very much, it's much easier, in my experience, to elicit what is it that you want to do as a student, rather than, oh, I would like to make a game like the 5-year-long 100-person project of the dream game I really want to make. They can't do that here. For those who are not familiar with Bitsy, let me introduce the tool. So this was created in 2017 by Adam Ledoux, and who has been running game jams ever since then through itch.io mainly. So if you go to itch, there is an extensive catalog with multiple major versions of Bitsy, but all recognizably Bitsy games that we can draw on. The reason people participate in these jams over the years is because you don't need a particular background in coding in JavaScript in order to accomplish things. We can have freshmen do it, we can have high school students do it. And even with these technical constraints, we have magazines like Game Poems, where some of you might have seen Brendan Allen's talk yesterday, where he went through some of these virtuosic examples, which we also see in this scene of Bitsy creation. I want to share Matthew Bausek, who's in the audience here, work with his intro game design students, because this was the first public playtest of Multiplayer Bitsy. So these are student games that were created. This one on Freeform Gaia is by a team of 6 students, and these two are by teams of 2 students. So what I've added to Bitsy is in-browser collaboration. Exactly what you'd expect from Google Docs, does everything you would want from Git, but you don't have to teach Git, which means you don't have to teach the command line. You don't have to teach merge conflicts. And that saves you time and lets you make games. The other inspiration from this, I've been saying Google Docs a lot, but a practice I was introduced to by Kate Compton over the pandemic was the spreadsheet party, where we could not physically get together. So instead of getting together in our houses, we would all log on to a voice call together. Someone would share a link to a spreadsheet, because a spreadsheet, of course, is a drawing tool. And people would go in there, they'd use it as a paint program, they'd start, there's a lovely write-up by 10 here about their practice of the spreadsheet party, which the part I remember is we had so many programmers that somebody got into the scripting and decided this page of the sheet is now a dance floor. It goes oomph, 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 back and forth. And elsewhere, people were like categorizing things into hot or not and how many tentacles and stuff like that. Game designers, great folks. There's an interesting feature of this which in computer parlance, we'd call this a mutex, but it's really when you are doing something, even though other people can come on top of that and clobber that edit, they don't choose to do so. It feels really awkward. It's like talking over somebody. So there's actually this social practice that works around a really thorny technical problem. If you had 2 or 3 or 5 people trying to edit the same cell, they simply choose not to. And I think what accounts for this is really the social desire to play. So this was expressed really eloquently by McGuay Baker of the Lumpley's, the creators of Apocalypse World, who wrote on a blog recently, play games. Connecting around play is so extremely human, so very primate, so absolutely mammalian. It is in our DNA. We can't not. You've got to play games because it makes you talk to people, or even just type to people. And that makes you think about the world a little differently for a while. And that's what I want from our technology. It should get out of the way, and it should just be a transparent film that allows us to talk with each other. Because the great thing about a canvas is you don't need to use your words to communicate. We are not, this is a slide with the link to the itch page for multiplayer Bitsy. I want to talk through some of the materials that I promised that are useful for getting started, for getting through the blank page problem. Let me jump ahead a bit. We'll go right back to the casual creators, but I want to show you these narrative design exercises that Anna Anthropy created and shared from her 5 years teaching narrative design in Bitsy. And these are called the Itsy Bitsy exercises. They're battle tested. They teach how to tell interactive stories with a simple set of tools. You get spatial movement, simple interactions, concise dialogue. It's 2 lines tall. Pixel art, color design, screen composition. Also, you get 2 colors. It's very hard to overwork pieces of your game because this is a 16 by 16 room containing 8 by 8 sprites. Once you've made your initial mark, that's kind of the entire mark you're going to get. And I'll show you an example. And if anybody in the chat wants to hop on the link that we have.
It is in under Sunday Talks. It is under the forum-like thread for this talk. It's almost all the way at the bottom.
So I'm just
multiplayer Bitsy for tiny game jams.
And you can see what I've added to the Bitsy interface here is this room name. So you don't log in or anything. You get this bare link. Everybody who has this link with this instance name has access to this room. So while people are coming in, I'm going to start this exercise, which is called Where's My Key? And we are controlling this cursor. Someone has joined. I'm going to, oops. If they could hold off on making an edit for 1 second, I have picked up a key, and now I can exit through this door. But of course, what we can do now is we can hide the key somewhere else. Let's see. I would like to put it on these boxes here. No, I would like to put a key on these boxes here. I'm painting a tile. It's actually keys. And now if we start the game, we hit a glitch. Well, that's live demos for you. So our idea here is that we all have edit access to the game at the same time with the same set of tools. We can change what a key looks like. We can create experimental art. And we can always go through and inspect the rules, because somewhere in here, clicking that causes a transition there. Key is a variable, and I'm guessing one of these exits is conditional. So in principle, this locked exit is connected to, one of these exits and endings. So these are the link verbs. This is the equivalent of a hyperlink between passages in a twine. So you can add scripting. The majority of Bitsy games are not done with scripting, but if you want to create entire interactive fictions in here, these two tools, the exits and endings and the dialogue tool, are your best friends. And then you get screen wipes like that. Is that the tunnel we saw? I think we saw the slide right. And we actually were on locked exit 2. And if we had done it with no key in the inventory, it would tell us we can't open this lock without the key. So everything in Bitsy is in this shared environment. And what we expect to see, what I would love to see in the classroom, is students teaching each other how to use the scripting, just as we see them doing with Twine, over each other's shoulders, whatever is necessary, since they're in the same space together. So with that, I will go back to slideshow mode. There are 12 Itsy Bitsy exercises in total. We just saw one of them. These are great starters for I would like a game design problem to solve. Something I really appreciate about how simple they are. To put it into words, I'm going to Kat Manning's manifesto on Lacune, which says that what is not present should linger on the page, platform, screen. The absence should be felt. And you should pay attention to the margins. And I think that's the philosophy I get from the Itsy Bitsy exercises out of all Bitsy games. All of this negative space and these very fleeting moments are part of the grain of Bitsy, of all game creation tools. Part of what I was explaining with the exits and endings tool, when we drilled down to that dialogue script, is you are combining passages from a hypertext, which have conditions and have effects, with traversal. In Bitsy, you are adding a slight delay every time the user hits that button to bump their avatar closer to the place they want to go. That adds up. That paces them in a way that you don't have the same pacing if it was a prose-based tool. What you do still have is the vocabulary of linked structures we are familiar with from Choose Your Own Adventure games. So a paper surprisingly, an architectural journal actually taxonomized the links in Warlock of Firetop Mountain. And I believe all of them apply here. We have the very ordinary metronomic link that is, I'm going to walk directly forward down the passage, as we've seen those of us who do teach Bitsy see in almost every Bitsy game. We also have recursive traversal, which is to say some rooms you return to. We have concatenative traversal, where you have more and more points of focus, where they kind of jump forward at you as if we had not one line of dialogue, but 5 of them, adding. We have deceleration, which is accomplished by spreading items out in the space. In the way that it entwines, we'll see hypertexts not in the list of here are your next 3 choices, but scattered around the paragraph to make you stop and look through what you're doing. We have immersive, which is a bigger topic, and dislocative, and disjunctive. So disjunctive is the one I'm going to focus on most here, because I think Bitsy is also a strong medium for adaptation, and something I appreciate from sort of art curriculum is you want to make master studies. You want students to own their version of the classics by translating that. And how do you do that in a games tool? You do it by what's called a demake, which is what you're forced to make with Bitsy. I'll elaborate on that idea a bit. Let's see. I want to go back to the Dr. Takei Compton's thesis work on casual creators, specifically casual creativity support tools, which I count Bitsy as an example of that. What we see up here is the spore creature creator. This is like Maya, but less. What we might call this in terms of a skill, is that this technical solution to the editor produces a high floor. It is incredibly hard to fail to make a creature because you just drag these parts. As long as you have dragged a mouth onto a spine, technically you have a creature. Then you go into one of these buckets, you drag on some limbs, you go to the paint, you grab one of these, and then you go to test and walk it around. That's a lot faster than modeling, texturing, and rigging a character with a non-humanoid anatomy in any other process. What we also see, though, is a low ceiling. So these are press photos from the 2005 version of Spore that was being marketed. And you can see it's just the same kind of guy in a fancy renderer. He's still made of these lumpy metaballs and these Muppety parts. The fantasy that the players are engaging, you're kind of invited to believe this is something I can make. There's all of these dopey-looking creatures intentionally seeded into the Sporopedia, because when a kid looks at that, speaking as a kid who looked at the Sporopedia, I said, I can do better than that. And then I spent a lot of time making spore creatures. We see some examples. This is an album that was released by someone who contributed music. And for the cover art, he decided to go back and collect creatures that people had made and shared, presumably in the Sporopedia. And you can see the kinds of techniques that people are using there are still recognizably spore creature creator, but also more virtuosic than these starter templates. And that's very important. That's what we expect out of this social sharing, that the scene kind of all levels up together. Another way of thinking about this is that creative failure is the thing that most likely to stop our students from making anything, or from making anything that's theirs. They would much rather perhaps make something that is safe and that doesn't risk their status if they make something that's bad. The point of Bitsy is that everything is bad and it's fine. We are making these guys, not these guys. So in formal terms, there's just so little complexity available to you in Bitsy. I say that, and there's 12 tools, but each individual tool has low formal complexity. This has been characterized by Eunice Telia, one of my Cook's students, in a mathematical proof which explains his decision to go with these 6x6 flowers instead of 12x12 flowers in a generator he was designing. He wanted, it's a way of saying that this expressive range, you get more expression because the complexity here is low per pixel. When I say procedural generation and I mix that in with tool design, I'm appealing to this constructivist tradition, which Edith Ackerman wrote about 3 decades ago. If it's true that knowledge cannot be divorced from the context in which it's built and from the media that allow its expression, then we can't think of the knower as an autonomous agent. Rather, their minds, senses, and bodies are expanded through the use of personal tools and cultural artifacts. In fact, these tools and artifacts are incorporated and can become an integral part of ourselves. That is what I want to accomplish with video games. That is what I want to accomplish with creative writing. And the safest way for somebody who's completely new to this medium to encounter that looks something like Bitsy. I want to pause. What do we mean incorporate into ourselves? So I'm going to pop out and use an example from The Sims because that's another Maxis game. It's another example of authorship play. The reason it's called multiplayer Bitsy and not multi-user Bitsy is because you are playing the editor. The level editor is the game I'm shipping to you. And that's where you get this canvas that allows you to put down an idea and hold it outside of yourself and walk around it with somebody else by your side. In the context of Sims, these traditions, Sims is a single player game, of course, but these traditions circulate on message boards. There's a tradition called the Painting Goblin, which is a Sim who lives in the basement and paints all day and gets really good at making paintings that sell for 1,800 simoleons a pop. This ensures that the rest of your household never has to work. Is it bad that we never invite the Painting Goblin out? Is it bad that we don't go to events with him? That he isn't part of the social world we were envisioning originally when we made the house? Maybe. But maybe we ourselves, maybe the Painting Goblin is our grind set. And if we could channel him more often, as Becca Shuch writes, that's a goblin-y part of ourselves that we had access to through The Sims. So that's the kind of play I really care about making tools accessible. The Sims is used as an architecture tool, but it has all of the same properties because it has all of these same properties of the casual creator. Because it was originally designed per Keimgin Gold building SimCity as a architecture evaluation tool. The Sims were just like, we might need to have some guys walk around in here, but this game is actually about making buildings. And then players took to it and they started telling their stories and they started making the Sims into these exquisite dolls and took it in a completely different direction from there. I want to, in the context of Bitsy, what we have seen educators in game studies do is introduce key concepts of procedural and participatory media using writing, yes, but also using game objects as the medium to think about games. So if you encounter a mechanic in a game, there are a surprising variety of genres, not just the 2D adventure, but also the point-and-click adventure, like we saw, that can be expressed in Bitsy, that require a little bit of reorientation in order to squish it down to this canvas. We can even go to the literary genre of games and explore those through Bitsy, through demakes. And it can be, this is one of many mediums in which we can translate what is the same idea of a game. If we want to expose the capabilities of the medium you author in, it is best to start with a wider variety of mediums with lower formal complexity. So I've included Matthew's adaptation curriculum, where the students are invited to make the same game as a written piece, using cards or using hypertext or using Bitsy in order to get them into what are the capabilities of its adaptation, analogous to what would we get if we translated this, what would we get if we used a different language, but we had to still express the same idea. In the wider world of Bitsy, you can, if you need more capabilities, you can have them. There are extensions such as Pixie. There are engines that add event-based mechanisms, essentially, so more object-oriented programming into the canvas that is Bitsy style, that so that I believe this, which means, again, you can take assets made for Bitsy and put them into Bitsy, and you're never starting from a blank canvas. That's the important thing about having this Bitsy ecosystem that already exists in the world. You can add things like ink scripting if you pick up Bitsy. You can always grow, but you have this community, you have these assets created by the community that you just have access to because they all happen to be 16 by 16 rooms of 8 by 8 sprites. And I see that to build on a conversation I've been having with Kat and with Kate and about the work of Shannon Mattern. This allows us to build out a folk infrastructure. Bitsy is just it's a substrate of pieces that you can glue together and have game mechanics that work across all of these different possible projects, all these different genres, and all these different kinds of things that people have been trying to say. You can have these communities that organize and run their own game jams, that because Bitsy was offered as a open source, freely available tool, and you can use those norms of extending it with that implicit permission, that has allowed people to repurpose it for what their community needs, for what their jams are geared towards exploring. So the image on the side here is the Bitsy museum hack, which each of those portals goes to a different Bitsy game. They're just separate. They were originally separate HTML files, and this tool smushes them together and gives you a hub world to access them from. This did not work with more recent versions of Bitsy. So Marlo Daub reached out and got help, not from the original creator, but from someone else in the community to update the museum hack. That we could, to me, that's a story of maintenance without the maintainer being a fixed person. Just whoever comes across it and decides this was a really useful thing and I'd like to have that, they are empowered by the community to recreate that thing and to follow that desire path and to repave it again. And through that, we're able to build the folk infrastructure that allows us to do so much more with a small 2-week game jam. Those are the slides. You can find me on Blue Sky or by email. Definitely reach out if you want to use multiplayer Bitsy, because I would love to help set it up, get it ready for your classroom. You can use my server that we saw, or you can host your own if you prefer to not be on the open internet in that way. And I'm excited to create more of these classes, and more of these spaces. So, please reach out. Thank you.
Got about 10 minutes. You want to take questions?
I would love to take questions.
Okay.
Is there a max number of people who can be editing at the same time?
Is there a maximum number of editors in multiplayer Bitsy? No, but socially it becomes complicated, because if they aren't all talking with each other, like at least on the voice call, then they tend to clobber each other.
Did you find a good medium or good number for max number? Like what?
So if it's transient, my expectation from spreadsheet parties is that you can have, as long as they sort themselves into different tools, you could probably have 2 people on any given tool. That's even easier if they can break into different voice groups, like in a physical room, where 12 people on a Discord call, as you might imagine, isn't. People get bored, they can't talk. Any other questions? Oh yeah, please.
Matt Griffin says, great talk, great resource share and perspective.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt Griffin. Yeah, please.
Like very high level, if I wanted to boost my own single player thing,
Yep.
like what kind of things do I need to set up? Do I need to have a point server?
Yes. So if I wanted to set up my own Bitsy web server, what would I need to do? Is the question. So there is a GitHub project that you can fork. It's a client server. You need to point your client at whatever server. So I haven't messed with this. If basically there's the advantage of having your own server is that you're running your own server and are responsible for its uptime, right? What I have set up is it's behind ngrok running on a little box on our balcony. So I can SSH into that on our Tailscale network and reboot the service when I need the server again. Another way to do this would be to point at the public auto merge testing server because Bitsy games are small and they'll let you leech off their bandwidth as well. It's really the server itself is really agnostic. We just need to be pointing somewhere. Matthew.
Where do you see this project going in the future? Are you going to be Bitsy? Talk about other
The question is, where do you see Bitsy going in the future? Does this look like other tools? I imagine like adding multiplayer to Twine. Does this look like something else? Right now, it's how many hands can I get this into so that I, as a maintainer, have a queue of feature requests, bug fixes, so that right now if this is used, then I'll continue working on Bitsy. And if it doesn't get used, then I will look for another substrate.
Just curious, because I haven't pulled it up myself yet. Does everyone who's in it have the same view? Like, does one group have like, oh, I have the sounds up, another group has like, I have the tiles up? Do you all have the same windows up, or can you customize?
The question is, do you all have the same windows up, or can you customize? Right now, you can customize, and everybody has their own version of their screen so that they can have as much horizontal scrolling as they like. Obviously, this makes the cursor co-presence a bit less useful. So I have considered changing it and syncing that visual configuration. I haven't observed enough users to say whether that would be better or worse. There's obviously the advantage of we're all pointing at the same things, but at the same time, if you had 12 people in there, some of them would be scrolled off very far into the side.
I guess, Paul, have you considered a toggle for cursor co-presence?
The question is, have you considered toggling cursor co-presence? I don't see any advantage to disabling cursor co-presence. There are more advanced forms of co-presence I would like to add, because right now there is no edit provenance. So when something has happened, you do not know when that happened or who did that. I'm leaning very heavily on you are in the same call as each other and can request accountability verbally.
Thinking about this with like young people, I'm wondering if you have any ideas for like prompts or exercises, like what if I said I could get this little group of kids into, like middle school kids, into the Bitsy multiplayer, what would be a way in it? Like I don't know Bitsy, I don't know where the elemental, sort of entryways are. Like what would be a fun way to start?
Yeah, the question is, if I have a group of middle schoolers and I'm introducing them to Bitsy, what is the best set of examples for them to start from? And I strongly encourage loading the itsy bitsy exercises directly in the tool, because they work on these Zelda tropes, right? So there will probably be a genre touchstone in among them. And because it's in the editor and playable in the editor, that's enough to start going, well, what if I change this? And since they're teaching exercises, and Anthropy has left gaping holes in them, which encourage modification.
Again, they probably parent plan, but you compared to Google Docs, which has permission levels. This seems like, is it fully non-hierarchical collaboration in it?
And the question is you compare this to Google Docs, which has permission levels. Is this fully non-hierarchical? It sure is. There's no identity. Everyone's a peer. Yeah, if you want to save anything that's in this, you go to the data tab and you copy the text out. You can also use it to collaborate with yourself, since it is a sync server. I'm told we have 4 minutes. If we have any other questions about, I'd love to hear from folks what you all, I've described one use case, but what are you all picturing using? What would you use Bitsy for?
Drop it in the thread below.
What I'm thinking now, of course, in the fall, we're trying to figure out what to do. So Bitsy applying exercises in groups to lessen the pressure, at least to start off. Coming up with some sort of comfort, even like they each have to come up with a different sort of tile, right? You know, and then given constraints over the maybe not the environment, the type of simple interaction. It's like, all right, you're gonna be responsible for this item, you're gonna be responsible for this sort of environmental tile, all work together, figure out things about how you place it, happening. And it's at least just the first step where it feels more fleshed out than one person create, like 4 people are in a round table, which is in the room. It's faster iteration of that idea while they all still have left. So like, oh, I created an item, I created a tile. Like, that's
Yeah, the question is, so the premise here is it's a group of 4. They're around a table, but we want them building in Bitsy and we want them building in Twine. So how in the world are they going to sync those changes together if they have a single editor? So there's this crazy Amaze Talk workshop that Natalie Lawhead gave 2 years ago, using a mouse multiplexer and sticking groups of people into Bitsy, just regular single player Bitsy. And obviously it was a little glitchy in various ways, but they just verbally sorted out, how can we manage to do things? And that gave them all of the fluidity you would want, where, oh, I need this new tile. Oh, I need to paint the tile somewhere. Oh, I'm going to switch tasks fluidly. And you don't have to pop them out into the slow, I'm going to commit a single tile at a time kind of version control, but through physical media. That's what I'd love to obviate with this kind of tool.
We are at time.
Okay. Well, thank you all for wonderful questions.